Hello, this is Jack from Teaching ESL Online. I help independent online teachers teach and earn online. Now, in this video, I am going to talk about a typical online one-to-one English or language lesson. Because I talk a lot about the marketing side of things, but a lot of teachers are getting in touch and saying, how do I actually teach? How do I teach these one-to-one lessons? There'll be teachers watching this who have no experience at all, who have never taught before. And also there'll be other teachers who have lots of experience, who've taken courses, and they've taught in classrooms and traditional settings. So bear that in mind while I go through this. The best tip I have when it comes to teaching online is to just think about your students and think about the problems they have and the best way that you can solve them. So they might have problems with a specific tense, with pronunciation, general English. They might have the problem that they can't pass an exam. So really get specific for your learners and solve problems that they have. With that in mind, let's look at a typical lesson and what I normally go through. And just to say, this is my type of lesson. This is what I do. Everyone's different. We all have different niches, but this is a good starting point. The first 2 to 3 minutes are usually about warm-up. So this is when you can engage in a conversation with your learner. I usually ask them what they did last weekend. And to take it a step further, I make a note of what they're going to do and then ask them specific questions about this. Now, some learners take a long time to warm up. So what you can do is you can actually talk to them about stuff. You can ask them lots of questions and you'll know with specific learners what you need to do, and over time you'll get better at this. After that, I like to go through what I call a spontaneous review. So let's say you went into depth in the present perfect the week before. What you can do here is ask some questions using the present perfect, but make it a little bit more flexible. Don't just ask them the same questions as you did the week before, but ask them similar questions and see if they've really picked up on what you went through. This is also a good time to talk about homework. I prefer to give project-based writing tasks and correct this outside of the lesson, because the lessons usually are all about the actual speaking and practicing and things like that. After that, I usually lead up into the topic. The topic or the theme of the lesson is the meat and bones. It could be an article, a video, a grammar point, whatever it may be, a dialogue, for example. But it's wise to lead up into that. You know, traditional teaching, this is the engage part, where you can ask some questions, you can show some pictures, you might show a very short video before you get into the actual meat and bones of the lesson. I sometimes go through the same lesson with every student, but in most cases, I like to make it specific. So learners will send me videos, they'll send me articles, or I'll find stuff that is interesting to them. For example, if a student is really into finance, like some of my students used to be, then we would talk about that. I'd find articles based on this subject. The main part of the lesson is going through this article, teaching different grammar points about it maybe. How much grammar you introduce is up to you. You can do it in different ways as well. But I really like to get a conversation going and to look at the different things in this article, to take the vocabulary, the phrases, any kind of grammar, and just ask questions, talk about stuff. Ask them to ask you questions as well and go into the article in depth. While we're doing this, I like to make notes on Skype or Zoom in the chat box. So if a student makes a mistake, I will write out the sentence correctly. I might press enter straight away, or I might save it until a great stopping point. I do this because I like the conversation to flow and I don't want to interrupt my student with feedback. And instead it's better to leave this, in my opinion, to a specific time. I also like to introduce role play into the lesson, and this is where we can just take on different roles and the student can get into a different personality. Because when you're having a conversation online, it can become very similar and it's not very dynamic. You know, you're talking about topics, but they're not in different situations. So I like to place the student in a specific situation and have them act out, or have them, you know, take on this role and use different types of English and use English in a different way. And then towards the end of the lesson, we'll have a summary of the class, talk about homework, and I'll ask them what they're going to do this weekend. I'll mix this question up a little bit, like, what are you most excited about this weekend? Are you doing anything fun tonight? That keeps this question fresh, and it just allows you to get more specific when you're asking questions. And then I'll make a note of what they're going to do that weekend, so then we can do that again at the start of next lesson. I like to make homework project-based and to give my learners writing tasks. Now, I like to, like I said before, correct these and give feedback within Google Drive and do this asynchronously, so we're not going through it in depth in the lesson. But I'll make a note of a couple of things and go through this. And students often ask me as well, what did you mean by this? Why was that a mistake? So homework is an important part of it. I like to give writing tasks so we focus on the speaking in the lesson. Now, another quick tip. This is what I love to do, and it adds a lot of value to your lessons. Remember before I said I used to write down the sentences of the mistakes that they made, or I used to correct their sentences. Now, what I like to do is to record the audio and send it to the student. This allows them to listen to the corrected English, and also they can do tasks with it. They can repeat the sentences, they can write them down, and this just gives them great practice outside of the lesson. Now, some students don't do it, but the majority I found did, and they found it very beneficial. That's a basic outline of how I have taught conversational English lessons online. You might be different. Please let me know how you teach, if there's anything there that you think I should be doing or shouldn't be doing, and just give me any kind of feedback on this. Please let me know if you have any questions. And if you want to build an online teaching business to teach English online independently, then check out the description below or just click somewhere on the screen. Thank you for watching. Speak to you all soon.